The grand chandeliers of the Imperial Ballroom flickered as Prince Cedric loudly announced the termination of his engagement to Eileen. At that precise moment of public humiliation, a flood of memories from a past life rushed violently into Eileen's mind. She suddenly understood that she had been reincarnated as the tragic villainess of her favorite Otome game. According to the game's true plot, her impending doom was completely guaranteed unless she altered the narrative immediately. Looking directly at Prince Cedric and the delicate heroine Lilia, Eileen refused to shed a single tear for them. She curtsied with flawless aristocratic grace before turning her back on the entire judgmental royal court. To avoid her execution, she needed to win over the most dangerous entity in this fantasy world. That entity was the banished demon Lord Claude, whose awakening would eventually bring ruin to the entire kingdom. Eileen packed her essential belongings and traveled straight toward the forbidden dark woods where his castle stood. Heavy iron gates guarded by gargoyles loomed before her as she approached the ancient crumbling fortress. Without a shred of hesitation, she pushed the heavy gates open and stepped into the domain of monsters. Small, grotesque demons materialized from the shadows, growling menacingly to protect their sovereign master. Instead of screaming, Eileen merely glared at the creatures and demanded an immediate audience with the Lord. The heavy doors of the throne room swung open on their own accord, revealing a massive, shadow-draped hall. Sitting upon the obsidian throne was Lord Claude, possessing long dark hair, striking pale skin, and mesmerizing red eyes. A suffocating dark magical pressure filled the air, making it incredibly difficult for an ordinary human to breathe. Eileen took a deep breath, stepped forward gracefully, and loudly proposed marriage to the stunned demon lord. Claude stared down at the human woman in absolute disbelief, his cold expression briefly faltering. He warned her that a single snap of his fingers could instantly incinerate her into a pile of ash. Eileen smirked right back, stating that an emperor's daughter would never back down from a profitable alliance. Intrigued by her utter lack of fear, Claude decided to let her stay in the castle guest quarters temporarily. The next morning, urgent news arrived from the capital stating that her family faced imminent financial ruin due to the broken engagement. Eileen realized she needed an independent source of massive wealth to protect her family's vulnerable noble standing. Utilizing advanced knowledge from her modern past life, she formulated a brilliant plan to create a luxury cosmetics brand. She needed unique, high-quality ingredients that could only be harvested from the Demon Lord's magical territory. With the help of some friendly, clumsy, low-tier demons, she began gathering rare herbs and vibrant magical blossoms. She set up a secret laboratory inside an abandoned workshop room within the vast, sprawling castle. For days, Eileen tirelessly boiled, filtered, and refined various botanical extracts to create flawless makeup prototypes. Finally, she successfully produced a line of premium face creams and brilliantly pigmented lipsticks. She secretly dispatched her loyal family servants to distribute these revolutionary products to elite noble women in the capital. The cosmetics instantly became an absolute sensation, generating massive piles of gold coins for her family's estate. Lord Claude eventually discovered her hidden commercial operation but chose to quietly watch from the balcony. To his surprise, the gloomy castle felt significantly warmer and much livelier ever since her chaotic arrival. One evening, Claude approached Eileen in the courtyard, bringing her a rare, beautifully glowing night lily. Eileen smiled genuinely, realizing that her tactical plan to tame the final boss was actually working. For a brief moment, it truly seemed as though her tragic destiny had been completely averted. Suddenly, a frantic crow familiar flew into the courtyard, carrying a highly distressing message from the capital. The message revealed that Prince Cedric and Lilia were initiating a sinister plot to frame the demons for an upcoming academy disaster. If the plot succeeded, Claude would be forced into his catastrophic dragon form, destroying everything she had built. Eileen tightened her grip on the parchment, realizing she had to infiltrate Macheta Academy before the trap sprung. Eileen stared at the crisp uniform of Macheta Academy laid out across her bed. She chopped her long blonde hair short and bound her chest tightly to perfect the male disguise. Slipping into the prestigious academy under an alias was her only choice to prevent the impending disaster. The grand halls of Macheta Academy buzzed with the chatter of elite noble students. Eileen immediately sensed an unnatural sweet fragrance lingering heavily in the air. She recognized the scent from her past life knowledge as the banned illicit demon-incense. This dangerous substance was specifically designed to drive nearby demons into a violent, uncontrollable frenzy. If the incense remained active, Claude's peaceful domain would face total destruction by the human military. Eileen needed to find the source of the plot before the school festival commenced. A shadow fell over her desk as a tall, imposing student approached her quiet corner. It was James, the charismatic but enigmatic student council president of Macheta Academy. James adjusted his glasses, his piercing eyes scanning Eileen with deep suspicion. Eileen immediately remembered that James hid a secret identity as a powerful half-demon. She offered a polite, seamless greeting, perfectly masking her internal panic. James warned her that new students should not wander into restricted areas of the campus. As James walked away, Eileen noticed a subtle trace of the demon incense clinging to his elegant uniform. She realized that James was already being manipulated by someone pulling strings from the shadows. To counter this threat, Eileen decided she needed to build her own loyal network within the school. She sought out key student leaders who were dissatisfied with the current student council's strict rule. With her natural leadership and sharp wit, she quickly convinced them to form an elite campus security force. This official new group would allow her to patrol the academy grounds legally at any hour. During a midnight patrol, Eileen discovered a group of secret demon hunters hiding in the old bell tower. The hunters drew their silver blades instantly, startled by the sudden intrusion. Eileen raised her hands peacefully, revealing that she knew exactly why they were tracking the incense. She offered them an alliance, promising to deliver the true culprit behind the illegal trade. Recognizing her unmatched tactical intellect, the demon hunters lowered their weapons and agreed to her terms. Meanwhile, Claude sat in his lonely dark castle, deeply missing Eileen's energetic and chaotic presence. He looked down at a small cosmetics jar she had left behind on his desk. Back at the academy, Eileen discovered that the incense distribution was rapidly accelerating. The shipments bore a distinctive royal crest that pointed directly toward Prince Cedric's inner circle. It became undeniable that Lilia was using her knowledge of the game to engineer Claude's downfall. Eileen ordered her newly formed security force to lock down all major exit gates of the campus. The tension on campus reached a boiling point as the annual Academy Festival officially began. Suddenly, a low ominous tremor shook the very foundations of the Central Academy building. Eileen dashed toward the student council office, knowing James was running out of time. She burst through the double doors to find the room completely filled with thick, purple smoke. In the center of the room, James knelt on the floor, clutching his head as demonic dark energy swirled around him. The massive dose of concentrated incense was forcing his latent demon blood to completely take over. Eileen drew a concealed magical dagger, preparing to step forward into the swirling, dangerous vortex. Before she could strike, the windows shattered completely as an enormous, terrifying shadow loomed outside the building. The monstrous silhouette crashing through the academy windows immediately forced Eileen to leap backward into a defensive stance. Shards of glass rained down onto the stone floor like a glittering, dangerous shower. Dust swirled through the cool night air as Eileen adjusted her male uniform and stared directly at the source of the chaos. The massive shadow turned out to be a rogue demon beast, its glowing yellow eyes scanning the corridor for prey. With a quick flick of her wrist, Eileen signaled her newly formed campus security force to flank the creature from both sides. The elite student guards sprang forward from the darkness, their enchanted weapons humming with magical energy. Within minutes, the cooperative squad successfully subdued the rampaging beast, forcing it to retreat back into the forest. Eileen realized the Academy beauty pageant was scheduled for the next morning, and the grand prize was the rare magical herb needed for her plans. To win that essential medicine undetected, she decided she would have to compete in the cross-dressing category of the contest. The next morning, the grand auditorium filled with cheering students as the unique cross-dressing pageant officially began. Eileen stepped onto the stage wearing a breathtaking, meticulously designed emerald gown that stunned the entire audience into silence. Her natural grace and unyielding noble poise captured the hearts of every judge on the panel immediately. When the final scores were announced, Eileen was crowned the undisputed winner of the Academy pageant. However, the celebration was cut short as a sudden, unnatural purple fog began leaking onto the stage from the vents. Student Council President James stepped from the wings, his eyes glowing an unstable scarlet as demon energy leaked from his body. The toxic demon-incense had completely overwhelmed James's half-demon heritage, driving him into a blind, destructive frenzy. James roared as a wave of raw magical force erupted from his palms, shattering the wooden stage decorations into splinters. Eileen dropped her trophy and ran directly toward the rampaging student leader, refusing to let him destroy himself. She retrieved the rare herb from her prize box and quickly crushed it between her palms to release its neutralizing oils. Leaping through a barrage of dark magical bolts, Eileen closed the distance between herself and the corrupted president. She forcefully slammed her glowing palms against James's chest, channeling the purifying medicine directly into his magical core. The dark aura hissed and evaporated instantly, causing James to collapse forward into a peaceful unconsciousness. Turning around to face the panicked crowd, Eileen pointed a commanding finger toward the balcony where the true culprit stood. Lilia and Selena stood frozen in the balcony shadows, their hands still holding the remaining supply of illegal demon incense. Eileen exposed their sinister machinations to the entire student body, thoroughly dismantling Lilia's facade of innocent purity. Lilia narrowed her eyes in sheer hatred, realizing her carefully scripted Otome game plot was being completely ruined by the Villainess. Suddenly, a powerful familiar dark wind swept through the auditorium as Demon Lord Claude materialized on the stage right next to Eileen. Claude smiled gently down at Eileen, wrapping his long black cloak around her shoulders to cover her torn dress. He praised her incredible bravery, his glowing red eyes softening with deep, genuine love for his clever fiancée. The students cheered for the powerful couple, and for a brief moment, it seemed as though peace had finally been restored. Later that evening, Claude and Eileen walked through the quiet, beautifully manicured imperial gardens outside the castle. The cool night breeze rustled the rose bushes, creating a deceptive sense of absolute security and tranquility. Without warning, a cloaked assassin materialized from the shadows directly behind Claude, wielding a dagger coated in a strange, shimmering liquid. Eileen screamed a warning, but the assassin's strike was impossibly fast, piercing through Claude's defensive barrier. The enchanted blade stabbed deeply into Claude's side, releasing a brilliant burst of volatile memory-wiping magic. Claude roared in pain as his powerful demonic energy flared outward, instantly obliterating the assassin into nothingness. Claude stumbled back against a stone pillar, clutching his bleeding side as his glowing red eyes flickered erratically. Eileen rushed to his side, her hands trembling violently as she tried to apply pressure to his magical wound. The bleeding eventually stopped, but the Dark Lord's expression grew cold, distant, and completely devoid of warmth. Claude pushed Eileen's hands away roughly, staring at her as if she were a complete and total stranger. Eileen called out his name, but Claude's voice was devoid of emotion as he demanded to know who she was and why she was in his palace. As Eileen stared into the completely blank, uncaring eyes of the man she loved, a cruel, triumphant laughter echoed from the palace rooftops above them. The cold laughter of Princess Lilia echoed maliciously across the palace grounds, mocking Eileen's sudden heartbreak. Eileen wiped a stray tear from her cheek, hardening her resolve as she gazed back at the blank expression of the amnesiac demon lord. She knew she had to act quickly before the upcoming royal inspection locked Claude away under the council's permanent control. Retreating to her secret cosmetics headquarters, Eileen gathered her most loyal allies to plan a daring infiltration. She crafted an intricate disguise, utilizing her premium foundation and theatrical makeup to blend in with the visiting imperial inspectors. The next morning, the grand gates of the royal sector groaned open to welcome the official imperial delegation. Dressed in the formal attire of a high-ranking scribe, Eileen marched smoothly into the heart of the palace among the crowd. In the central pavilion, Emperor Elmer sat majestically beside Prince Cedric, waiting to assess the cursed demon lord. Claude was escorted into the room by royal guards, his eyes still completely hollow and devoid of any recognition. Eileen stepped forward from the crowd under the guise of presenting a document, intentionally crossing paths with the Dark Emperor. As she leaned in, she dropped a customized perfume vial onto the stone floor, shattering it to release a nostalgic black rose aroma. Claude paused mid-step, his brow furrowing slightly as the sweet scent triggered a faint flash of light deep within his memory. Cedric noticed the disturbance instantly and ordered the royal guards to seize the clumsy scribe immediately. Suddenly, an unnaturally old courtier collapsed in the corner, his skin rapidly aging to dust right before everyone's eyes. The sudden chaos distracted the guards, allowing Eileen to slip away through a secret panel in the wall. Following a trail of strange decaying magical residue, she descended into the deepest levels of the palace laboratory. There, standing over an ancient spell circle, was the rogue mage Elphas, chanting incantations to steal the life force of the citizens. Eileen gasped as she realized Elphas was fueling a massive imperial aging conspiracy designed to weaken the entire royal bloodline. So, the troublesome Villainess has finally poked her nose where it doesn't belong, Elphas hissed, noticing her presence. Eileen stepped out boldly, pulling a hidden dagger from her boot to face the dark wizard head-on. Elphas launched a volley of dark energy bolts, forcing Eileen to dive behind a heavy stone pillar for cover. Remembering her specialized cosmetics, she threw a handful of explosive, powder-based blinding dust directly into the mage's face. Elphas screamed in agony as the caustic, burning powder blinded his vision and disrupted his concentration on the spell. With a swift kick, Eileen shattered the central focus crystal, causing the entire aging conspiracy network to violently shatter. As the magic collapsed, Elphas fled through a rear exit, but Eileen knew the true mastermind was still waiting on the roof. She rushed up the stone stairs, emerging onto the high, windy rooftop of the Imperial Palace Pavilion. Waiting there with a gleaming rapier was Lilia, her sweet heroine persona completely replaced by a twisted smile of desperation.
"This world belongs to me, the main character, and a pathetic villainess like you has no right to a happy ending," Lilia shrieked.
Eileen drew an ornamental sword from a nearby decorative armor statue, her posture perfectly balanced and steady. Without another word, Lilia lunged forward, her rapier moving like a streak of deadly silver light. Eileen parried the strike with a resonant clang, the impact sending sparks flying into the stormy air between them. Lilia pressed the attack ruthlessly, unleashing a flurry of strikes that forced Eileen closer to the rooftop's edge. Eileen refused to yield, using her knowledge of the game's mechanics to anticipate every single move Lilia made. Suddenly, Claude emerged onto the roof, drawn by the chaotic sounds of battle and the lingering scent of the black roses. Lilia saw him and tried to play the victim, screaming for his help while launching a hidden, underhanded magic spell at Eileen. Eileen anticipated the trick, spinning around to redirect the dark spell with her sword blade straight into Lilia's memory amulet. The deflected magic struck the glowing curse amulet around Lilia's neck, shattering it into a million harmless pieces. As the amulet broke, a massive wave of restored memories rushed violently back into Claude's mind, making his eyes glow red once more. Claude looked up, his gaze instantly locking onto Eileen with deep affection, recognition, and absolute devotion. Enraged by his recovery, Lilia made one last desperate attempt to stab Eileen from behind. With a single wave of his hand, Claude summoned powerful, elegant shadow tendrils that instantly disarmed Lilia and bound her securely. Lilia sank to her knees in complete defeat, her grand scheme completely dismantled by the villainess she had underestimated. Claude walked over to Eileen, pulling her into a warm, fierce embrace as the final remnants of the storm disappeared. "I remember everything, my brilliant villainess," Claude whispered softly into her ear with a gentle laugh. Weeks later, a magnificent royal wedding was held, celebrating the permanent peace between humans and demons across the empire. Eileen looked out over her thriving empire, fully knowing she had rewritten her tragic fate and successfully tamed her final boss.